Welcome back to Under the Cammie Netting, an AMST110G podcast discussing the Marine Corps and its culture. For today's episode, we'll take a more relaxed approach and discuss the lifestyles and day-to-day activities for this branch of service, focusing more on the livelihoods of the Marines rather than the institution itself. I'll be drawing from my own experiences, as well as information from the source One Bullet Away by Nathaniel Fick, which gives a real documented perspective on daily life from another Marine. First and foremost, I'd like to preface that day-to-day life differs drastically in the Corps depending on what job you're doing. For example, I had friends that were in the Air Wing who were crew personnel, and they worked very heinous shifts, 12 hours on, 12 hours off for the next 4 years of their life. Some other positions were a standard 9 to 5 office job. Towards the end of my enlistment, I was lucky enough to secure one of these positions. Now, from my experience, day-to-day life in the infantry was very erratic in workload, and I would compare the work to sprinting, going 100% for a short period of time, resting, and then repeating once again. Work routine for combat arms jobs were structured. There were training goals that needed to be met in order for a unit to deploy. If the unit fails, they don't deploy. We would consistently rotate from garrison, which is where we were at, back on base in our barracks, rotating into the field, where we were actively conducting an exercise on a weekly or monthly basis. Usually, the rotation would be 1 week in the field and then 1 week back in garrison. Sometimes we would only have 3 days back in garrison and then 1 to 2 weeks in the field. Daily life in garrison was honestly the most relaxed time imaginable. Besides waking up at 06 or 6 in the morning formation, conducting your daily morning physical training, there was nothing else on schedule past that. Nothing that was exceedingly physically difficult. Usually, small unit leaders, such as myself, would schedule meetings and classes. These classes would consist of basic tactics, understanding certain weapon systems, employing certain weapon systems. But these were all in a classroom environment where we were all around in a lounge, listening to a lecture, drawing on a whiteboard, etc., etc. Nothing that required us to physically do. These events usually would be an hour to 2 hours a day in garrison. However, if the unit was about to go on a graded field exercise, we would go to the quote-unquote backyard to train lightly. On base, the infantry units were barracked in more remote locations of the base. So the actual barracks where Marines lived were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountainous rural terrain. We ended up coining the term backyard for this immediate area surrounding the barracks to conduct this low-intensity training. Why backyard? Well, if the barracks is our home, then right behind us would be our backyard. Referring to the book One Bullet Away by Nathaniel Fick, he describes his experience in the Corps similarly. Daily work tied to repetition, lots of waiting, and sudden changes. The mixture of structure and unpredictability is a huge aspect of that lifestyle. Moving on to terms of service, the standard contract for an enlisted Marine and for many other branches is usually 4 years. Officers are different. They're commissioned by Congress, and they don't necessarily have a contract in terms of time. Rather, it is an indefinite obligation with a mandatory service requirement of 3 to 5 years, with the option for them to resign afterwards. So, in essence, officers officers commission into the military, and that is their profession, compared to enlisting, where you are volunteering a required amount of service. From my experience, the main reasons enlisted Marines decide to stay in the Corps is the camaraderie and shared experiences. Additionally, those young Marines who start families are more likely to stay in the Corps. One thing that isn't always known to the public is how well the military will take care of you for your day-to-day lives. These married Marines with families had their medical, dental, health insurance completely covered. Having children, i.e. Giving birth, that was all taken care of. Stipends for children and dependents, as well as childcare supplies provided for them. In the event that a Marine and his family would like to live on base, that was free. And on top of all these benefits for young families, they were guaranteed a paycheck. To close out this episode, we'll go over some personal experience, things about the Corps that I liked and things that I disliked. Some of the favorite things about serving for me were the friends I made. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the last episode, but the people that you end up serving with, despite knowing them for only a few years, will feel more like a family to you than your actual family. On top of that, I genuinely enjoyed my specific role as an infantry squad leader. I enjoyed leading a squad of Marines, and I enjoyed the work that we did. The one thing I mainly disliked, and what a lot of other Marines who leave dislike, was the toxic leadership structure that festered within the Corps. What I mean by this is not toxic in the sense that leadership was mean or they yelled at you. That was necessary. Sometimes you have to yell at each other, especially in a job like this. But what I mean by toxic leadership is that there were individuals in certain positions of authority that were incompetent, yet insisted respect. And that, honestly, is what drove me away from staying in the Corps. A lot of my friends who left the Corps around the same time I did had the exact same perspectives. It was difficult to be a servant leader for Marines under you, but at the same time, abide by certain orders by direct supervisors that will put those Marines under you in harm's way. In conclusion, the culture of the Corps is steeped in history, reinforced by modernity, and will always be a perpetual lifestyle embraced by a few. I hope you enjoyed listening, and hopefully you learned something about the Corps, maybe an inside scoop on how daily life looks, how the lifestyle of individual Marines are, and where our history started from. Thank you.